All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning, hour number 2 underway, 9 a.m. where I am, 8 a.m. where you are. World Series Game 1 tonight, 7 p.m. on Fox. Dodgers, Blue Jays, also tonight, 6 p.m. on ESPN. You've got ULL, the Cajuns, are at Troy. Troy 5-2, Cajuns 2-5. You can catch that game tonight. It's coming up tomorrow as well. Excuse me, tonight, 6 p.m. ESPN2. 6-1 North Texas is at 1-6 Charlotte, and you've got 5-2 Cal at 2-5 Virginia Tech on ESPN, and then 9 o'clock tonight, CBS Sports Network, 5-2 Boise at 1-6 Nevada. All right, continuing our journey through big games coming up this weekend, GMAC, and just kind of looking at players of note, players to watch for some of these games. We hit a couple of the games that are going to be happening. Let's go to your game, though. We already talked Ole Miss, Oklahoma. We don't need to go to your game. We'll go to my game, Tennessee and Kentucky. This Kentucky offense kind of starting to find a few things last week. Now, a lot of those via the check down. But I do think Cutter Boley's starting to understand that there are different options. You don't necessarily have to take the shot plays every time. They've got a run game that they can lean on. But this is a pretty fierce Tennessee defensive line. I don't see a ton of success for the Kentucky offensive line in this game. But Josh Caddis has been big regardless, and he's going to have to continue to be big. I don't know if I would make him sort of my key player, my player to watch for Kentucky in this one. But when I look at everything that is done by Seth McGowan, I can't go anywhere else. And running the football, the way he caught the football last week, I think Cutter Boley having sort of a newfound respect for that check down and being able to hit the back out of the backfield, he would be sort of the go-to guy for me. And I know they got to get some things going through the air and not just to the running back, but he's got to be big if Kentucky's going to find a way to win this game, because I think they need to make it their style game as well. And his power running ability is a big part of how that's going to have to happen.
Yeah, I think that everything about Kentucky it kind of runs through McGowan, does it not? I mean, I feel like he is without question the most challenging person on their offense to account for because of how hard he runs and how physical he plays. I think he's very important, naturally. Very, very important. So I don't know how you see it. Do you see a scenario where if Kentucky runs for less than 150 yards, they can win the game? Is that possible?
No.
I don't
Well,
think
the
so,
only thing that I
right?
would say is if it's extensions of the run, kind of similar to what we talked about with Alabama last week, and they didn't do it that way. Bush Hamden didn't necessarily create it that way last week for the Wildcats, but if it's that and then some of those check downs as well, and that's sort of how it's happening, then maybe I would still think it's going to be in like the 120, 130 range if they're going to find a way to do it. The way you're going to get Tennessee is attack them in the secondary. And one, you're going to have to be pretty good in pass pro because they've got defensive tackles and edge defenders that can get to the quarterback. But then two, that D line's nasty. You're not just going to run the football on
Very.
them. So, and Cutter Boley hadn't had a lot of success pushing the ball down the field. That has to happen at some point for Kentucky to get the win. But if they can hit the back out of the backfield, kind of get some things going that way, I don't think they have to be over 150, but they're probably going to have to be close with utilizing the backs in the pass game.
See, I think it's all pin and pull outside the tackles. Because I think Kentucky's kind of big and physical up front. I just don't think I don't think they match up very well up front. Like, I just think some of the movement stuff would get them off platform, would get them kind of leaning. I think they're a little bit out of balance from time to time up front. I do think some of their pin and pull stuff, some of their edge stuff, can be valuable to them in this game. Because I think if you're trying to run it up in between the tackles, you're going to have your hands full. And that's because you're probably not going to have success running it 10, 12, 13 times on the drive, because you're going to end up at a second and 12 or a second and 13 because you're going to get tackled. Your right guard, I'm not singling him out, but just using him as an example, or your left tackle is going to get beat inside, and and all of a sudden there's going to be a tackle for loss, possibly a fumble, and it's not going to be good. So I think it's all pin and pull for sure. I think Kendrick Law can be valuable in this game because he's an extension of the run with some of his screen stuff and some of his catch and run stuff. So I think he's really big. And then for Tennessee, I think it's pretty simple in this game for them. I think the most important player for sure, offensively for Tennessee, is Staley, Braylon Staley, the slot receiver. Because I think Tennessee, I think he needs to be more utilized. I think he's that good. I think he's an excellent football player. I think there's room for growth for his role within the offense. I think knowing the zone defense that Kentucky's going to play with, they're going to probably try to neutralize the vertical threats on the outside, which means your underneath stuff's going to have to be where it's at. I think Staley's the guy that can deliver that.
It's not a bad thought. For Tennessee, I look at it more from the perspective of just get over the drops. Just continue to find your way in the run game, which they've been pretty good with. There wasn't anywhere near the drop-off after losing the SEC Offensive Player of the Year a season ago in that asset. And so now guys got to catch the football. Joey Aguilar's got to make good decisions. If it were an individual, it would probably have to be somebody in that secondary, somebody on that defense that if Kentucky does find time, if Kentucky does decide, hey, I think the Kentucky receivers have good ability. I don't think they've been given a lot of opportunities to really display it. Now, we know what Kendrick Law is and who he is, and I think using him in some of the quick stuff, the handoff game, I think is great. But like Jamori Macklin can go. Hardly Gilmore can go. J.J. Hester has got some juice. I just think you've got to find ways to get them matchups and give them decent throws, and that's to me the things that they haven't happened. So take your pick between Macklin, Hester, Gilmore, Ferrier. They just need a receiver to help the quarterback step up and make some plays. And if you can loosen up that front a little bit, maybe like you said, you get some stuff going on the perimeter. Those defensive ends will crash down a little bit. Linebackers will play a little bit aggressive and get caught up in some of the traffic. And maybe that's a way that Kentucky can sort of find some yards, sustain some drives, maybe be in this game late against Tennessee. All right, let's continue rolling through some of these games. We're giving you key players that we want to watch throughout these matchups. It's a Max Ball Friday right here at McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Missouri Vanderbilt, 2:30 ESPN. You've got number 15 Missouri at number 10 Vandy. Game day going to be in attendance. Mizzou 6-1, Vandy 6-1. Who will you be watching on the Missouri side of things that you believe will go furthest to help decide this football game?
Kevin Coleman. This one's easy for me because I look at where Vanderbilt could potentially get got, and that's in the secondary. I really like their front. I think their front seven is very solid. But I'm still, as of this moment, not super overwhelmed by what I've seen from them in the back end. I don't think they're bad at all. I actually think they're pretty decent. I just think that part of what makes them decent is I like their front as much as I do, and I think they can apply some problematic pressure. So I think it's pretty simple when looking at Missouri and how they're going to attack and how they should attack. It should be heavy play action because you know Vanderbilt's going to be selling out against the run, and it's finding opportunities for Coleman downfield off play action. I think he is, without question, the most important asset in this game, followed by Norfleet. Those two guys off play action are big, and I think they need to figure out a way to get the ball out of Perbula's hands, and he needs to be smart, too, because they're going to be pretty good in the back end defensively. I think they can cause some problems.
All right, we'll continue kind of rolling through some of these games and players that we're watching, players that we need to keep up with. For Mizzou, for me, I don't know if I would go Kevin Coleman because I think they have other receivers emerging. I think they have other guys that are stepping up. And
like
I loved Marquise Johnson didn't do much last week, but Alubade did. And, I mean, I think he's a freshman receiver that's a bigger body that has some big-time ability that I think by the end of the year we're going to be talking about him as a legitimate playmaker. We know what Kevin Coleman can do. I think Marquise Johnson's got it inside of him. Norfleet might also need to be big in this game. But where I struggle with is what part of the Vanderbilt defense should Mizzou be most concerned about? Because it's not an individually based defense. They have guys that can strike and shed. They have guys that can get upfield. They have good run through with the linebackers sometimes. The safeties can play down in the box against the run. They're going to probably try to make you work everything underneath. So maybe a Brett Norfleet where these receivers are not going to be able to get behind the defense. They're not going to have a lot of options for explosive plays. Kind of work in the middle of the field, doing some things out in the flat. Maybe that's the difference here with how they need to. Because, I mean, I would imagine if Ahmad Hardy does get going, and maybe that's why I don't go Ahmad Hardy here or don't go with somebody up front, is they hadn't really been able to run the football the way that we've seen them the majority of the year the last 2 weeks. So do they just get back to it? I don't really know the answer to that. It's all going to depend on how Clark Lee wants to play him. And he'll go in with a specific plan. That's what Clark does. And I imagine that he'll either say, hey, I want to take the run away, or I want to go in and find a different way to play some one-on-one. And if they get behind us, they get behind us. And I would imagine there's part of that staff for Vanderbilt, Greg, saying we don't think Bo Perbula can beat us with his arm. And Bo Perbula made some big throws late against Auburn, but they weren't necessarily shot plays. So it's going to be a lot. But I'll stick with Norfleet because I think he needs to help in the run game as well. The stretch play didn't go against Auburn. It got spiked a little bit. They're probably going to want to try to force that thing to go this week. But, man, I wonder which offense presses first in this game. Because you imagine the possessions are not going to be plentiful in this matchup. So one thing Vanderbilt's been great with is when they are scored on early or they have gone behind early, they don't panic.
No.
Mizzou was down against Auburn, but they haven't really been in that spot too often. This is only their second road game this year. So that's what I'm going to be interested to see is which OC, does Tim Beck maybe try to step on the gas at some point at all? He hasn't done it really this year. Does Kirby Moore go out there and maybe try to force some things because they just don't think they're going to have many possessions to go out and try to find ways to win this game?
Well, I think it's going to be very important for Vanderbilt to be very disciplined defensively in their rush lanes. And they got to tackle, right? We know anytime you're playing Mizzou, it's probably the all-points bulletin number one. You have to tackle. They just do such a good job of bouncing off would-be tacklers. That's probably their best attribute is how good they are after contact. And we know how good the backs are. So I think it's very important for Vanderbilt to tackle. I think the most important aspect are linebacker run-throughs. I think their linebackers do a really good job. Whether it's Longwell, Patterson, both of them do a really good job, I think, of acknowledging and diagnosing and finding a way to carve through the front and shoelace tackle the back behind the line of scrimmage. I think they're going to have to do that and fire their gun appropriately in this game. Because if you all of a sudden run through and now all of a sudden you miss Hardy, he's out the gate. So these linebacker run-throughs are more important in this game than they've been in any other game this year for Vanderbilt. And they're going to do it. That's who they are. They're going to do it. So I think it's Longwell and Patterson with their ability to diagnose and be instinctive and make those plays behind the line of scrimmage to get Mizzou off schedule.
All right, we'll get to a break. I made a mistake on Billy Lucci. He's actually going to join us next. That is nobody else's fault that made a graphic or said anything else. It's 100% on me. Before we do that, Greg, tell our listeners about Polar Bear Services.
Well, Weston and the guys have been serving this community for a long time. They continue to do an amazing job. They've helped me with plumbing. They've helped me with electrical. And they will help me a lot here in the coming weeks with the HVAC system. As our systems are starting to get put to the test, we already know that you're going to have some issues as it relates to running heat at night, air conditioning during the day. That is stressful on your HVAC system. So get them out today and get your home and HVAC system ready to roll for the difficult months coming up. I'm so glad it's cooling off, but I know my home needs to be prepared for that. So remember, if you have a problem with your electrical, plumbing, heater, air, just pick up the phone and call the Bear. 205-497-BEAR. That's 497-BEAR.
All right, we'll talk A&M next with Billy Lucci of Texags right here on Jocks. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Appreciate you guys tuning in. It is 9:18 in Lexington, where I am. Massive mistake by my part, booking Billy Lucci at 9 o'clock when he told me specifically late last night that he couldn't do it at 9. Before we bring him on, I'm going to tell you about Andrew Sports Medicine. There's a reason Auburn Athletics hand-selected Andrew Sports Medicine's Dr. Benton Emblem and Charles Pitts to serve as their team physicians. They provide the highest quality sports medicine care in an effort to keep the Tiger student-athletes safe, healthy, and competing at the highest level. If Andrew Sports Medicine is a choice for Auburn Athletics, there's no doubt they should be your family's number one choice for sports medicine and orthopedic care. Andrew Sports Medicine has 7 locations across central Alabama, from Birmingham, Coleman, Gardendale, Hoover, Pelham, and Trussville. They offer same-day, next-day appointments for acute sports injuries. Visit AndrewSportsMedicine.com today to begin your journey of victory over injury. Let's go to Billy Lucci now on the Higginbotham Hotline with Texags. Welcome in, Billy. Glad you're with us. Thank you for joining at the time that I did not originally book you for. What is your biggest concern with Texas A&M heading into this matchup this weekend?
I mean, I'll start with the weather, just because I always think that's a great equalizer. I've had a lot of Aggies thinking, well, we run the football and they don't. I just think the weather is always a great equalizer, especially on the road. Of course, I was there last year when it rained buckets all game in Jalen Milroe in Alabama. I think they were up like 42-7 at one point. But my biggest concern on the field, Cole, like between teams, would be I just think offensively, I think this is the best defense A&M will face this year. Auburn probably up there. I think people don't talk about what a good job Durkin's done there, but I mean, I think LSU might be the best defense. I don't know without Weeks, and they've had other injuries, but throughout the season, this will be a tough defensive test. And I think if they kind of, in some weather, dare Marcel to get the ball to those receivers, I think that matchup, strength versus strength, A&M's receivers versus LSU's secondary. So maybe the best defense, certainly I think the best secondary. Per game, or is it going to be and where A&M looks like just a better team throughout? But I think it's a tough challenge, and my biggest other concern is just how desperate LSU's going to. A&M hasn't gone into many of these LSU matchups.
Okay, we dropped Billy, so we'll talk Texas A&M and LSU ourselves. 6:30 on ABC. You like LSU in this matchup, GMAC? Well, not a lot of people would have coming in, but Texas A&M only a 2.5-point favorite on the road. Weather, as he mentioned, could be a little bit of an issue. Could be some thunderstorms, but I don't know if I look at that saying that it gives LSU a lot of other advantages, because you still have the ability to run the football and you still have Marcel Reed. We have Billy back now. Sorry, Billy, go ahead and finish your thought for us.
No, yeah. I was just saying my other concern was going to be, outside of the LSU's defense and that secondary presenting a real strength-on-strength thing with the Aggie receivers. The other one to me is, A&M's the hunted against LSU on the road in Death Valley. I don't know that that's ever been the case. They've cleared some nice hurdles this year. They've broken some streaks. They haven't won there, really since I was in college, Cole. You and I were in college way before Greg was. So that just having to break through in a place that they haven't won.
Looking at the progress of Marcel Reed, I think he's progressed. I like how he's using his legs. I like how he's not overly relying on his legs. I still see the accuracy issues that plagued him at times last year. That's my biggest concern here is the pressure. He probably hasn't seen pressure like he's going to see this weekend. And I think it could potentially cause his process to accelerate, and that process accelerating could lead to more inaccurates, which could lead to more interceptions. This was a team that picked off DJ Lagway 5 times a handful of weeks ago. So how much do you trust Marcel Reed at this point?
A lot. I mean, I know the accuracy issues, but I also think he's, like you said, he's really improved on those. But really, he's faced teams, I think, that have heated him up and he's handled it so much better this year. I go back and think about a couple games last season. I think Colin Klein's quietly done a pretty amazing job with him and his progress as a quarterback. But here's the thing that I think, Greg, especially when you compare it like to a Lagway or even a Nussmeier, who I watched last year when he got sped up. Marcel, like you said, he seems to run when he needs to, and when the game dictates it. You know, he ran for what? If that touchdown doesn't get called back against Arkansas last week, he runs for over 100. There might be games where he runs for 20. He seems to, though, my biggest thing I like about him when you cut through all because he's winning at a rate that we got to, really analyze and overanalyze and compare him to people, and that's the right thing to do. It's what we do with quarterbacks especially. But I think the biggest thing is he's so calm, he's so level. He's so calm and so level that he, if you think about it, out at Arkansas, they go out there, hey, we need you to score on practically every possession. Okay. Against Florida, we need you to match Lagway at the beginning of the game and lead us to 3 touchdown drives on 3 possessions. Then it's a defensive struggle. We need you to hand it off and not make mistakes. Okay. Notre Dame on the road, shootout, Marcel. We need you to, have 400 yards of offense and lead us to 41 points. He can kind of do the Auburn game, right? Hey, we had a bad interception on that screen pass. All of a sudden the game's in doubt. Just take care of the football and we're going to win it with defense. He understands that, and even in game can kind of turn it on and off. And I just think his poise is something that's really, really impresses me, Greg. And it goes back to last year, really, when first start an hour before the game, hey, you're going to start in the swamp against LSU. In fact, hey, you're going to come off the bench here. We're down 17-7. We need you. So I think that's his biggest strength. And yeah, he's gonna miss some throws, and he hasn't turned it over a lot. I think he's thrown 15 touchdowns, 4 picks. But if he does, he bounces back, and I think that's what's going to be important on Saturday night in a place like Death Valley.
Billy Lucci of Texags joining us on the Higginbotham Hotline, talking Texas A&M and LSU. Is there real concern with the difference between this defense on first and second down and third down? You love the fact that your defense is dominant on third down. We don't love to see that it's not close to the same on first and second down. It's not 2 worlds apart, but is that something that should be of concern this week or moving forward?
I think moving forward, and I understand LSU's offensive talent. It sounds like they're going to play the young running back more, and they've got the young tackle that they're excited about starting. But I think it's the opponent, guys. Like, if you look at A&M, there's a certain type of opponent that's problematic to them. And I don't know if Missouri necessarily falls in that boat, but they're a possible. I just wonder a little bit about their receivers in terms of, like, what some of these other teams have brought to the table. But, if they played a Texas Tech or an Ole Miss or, an Oregon, and if they were able to get to a playoff, those would concern me more, like Arkansas, the way C.J. Carr and they spread it out, and Jeremiah Love, and that balance. But, when they've played the offenses that haven't been – if you look at Notre Dame and Arkansas, those are the 2 of the better offenses this year so far, Taylor Green and Carr and Love. And if they those 2 got them, but you look at how they fared against Florida, against Auburn, against Mississippi State, you're talking about, 17, 10, and 9 points. And I'm concerned as much more, I think, guys, the opponent that they run in style. Because there does seem to be a certain style that maybe makes some of these guys make a little few more plays in space, particularly at the linebacker level, where they seem to give up a little bit.
How do you feel about the back end defensively? Because that's one area where I don't feel like they've really been tested yet, partly because I think they were a little bit against Notre Dame. That was a million years ago, though. At least it feels like it was. Everyone else has had a hard time blocking them. So how do you feel about kind of the back end and the secondary?
Pretty good. I mean, I'll say this: I think it's the most improved outside of wide receiver, obviously Concepcion and Craver. I feel like it's the most improved position unit on the field. But Elko typically will be pretty high risk in the man-to-man. They love what they've seen from Ricks and Will Lee so far this year. I think Dalton Brooks is one of the most rapidly improving players on their team, number 25, safety. But, I do want to see what happens when a team really tests them. Like, they did a great job against Cam Coleman. They did a great job against Dallas Wilson. But early in that game, Lagway and those Florida receivers were hitting passes on that one-on-one. I think it's going to take a really accurate passer and some big-time receivers throwing on early downs. But they tested them in one early and then not after that. But, there's going to come a team, and obviously Nussmeier can pass like that. I think Mizzou could attack you like that. But, you don't see a lot of great offenses on the remaining A&M schedule, right? Like I said, Mizzou stands out. I would have thought that Texas and LSU would stand out, but they don't yet. What you see, and what's interesting, going back to what Greg asked earlier about Marcel and the blitz, is you do see a lot of the defenses step up. Starting with LSU, you go to Missouri, and then obviously you close it out with Texas. So they are going to face, I think, 3 of the 4 best defenses they face down the stretch. So to me, I'm going to be really watching this Aggie offense more than anything in this last month worth of games.
Billy, we always appreciate the time, man. Thanks for being versatile with us today, and enjoy the game this weekend. Look forward to catching up soon.
All right, guys. Appreciate y'all. See ya.
Appreciate you. Billy Lucci joining us on the Higginbotham hotline. Before we go to break, I'll tell you about Game Day Men's Health. If you are struggling with sleep, energy, brain fog, feeling on edge, Game Day Men's Health wants to help you today. Go to GameDayMen'sHealth.com. That's GameDayMen'sHealth.com. Sign up for the free consultation. You're going to get a free PSA test, free testosterone test, get all your baseline numbers, and then they're going to let you know where you stand from an overall health perspective. Then they'll introduce the different options that they have that can potentially help you, and you can save 10% on any of those options by mentioning Mac and Cube when you walk in the front door. Game Day Men's Health wants to help you lose weight, wants to help you feel better. All you do is go to GameDayMen'sHealth.com right now, sign up for that free consultation. Remember, a holistic approach to health and wellness and minimal upfront costs from the programs they offer. Go to GameDayMen'sHealth.com today. Now open in Trussville. We'll continue a Max Ball Friday next right here on Jocks. 8:34, Friday, October 24th, right here on Jocks. You can listen online, jocksfm.com. App is in your app store, iPhone, Android. Download that for free. Watch live on YouTube. Just search Jocks945. Or tell your home smart speaker to enable the Jocks skill.
Bill Smith Buick GMC is the GMC Dealer of the Year, the national champion of GMC dealers. You can take the short drive to Coleman to see what I'm talking about. I-65, exit 310, Highway 31. Get yourself a GMC Sierra 2500 Denali. This truck is off the charts. It's so nice. It's beautiful, and it's just state-of-the-art, high-level trim, and incredibly, incredibly good when you're using it on the work site. That truck is $89,000 in some places, but at Bill Smith, you'll spend $77,715. You take $12,000 off the sticker. Deals like that keep people coming back. That's why 75% of their business is repeat customers. That's because you have a better experience when you shop with Bill Smith. Take the short drive to Coleman. You'll be glad you did. You can also shop online, have it delivered right to your driveway at BillSmithBuickGMC.com.
Let's take a further look at this Texas at Mississippi State football game, Greg. Texas comes in 5-2, Mississippi State 4-3. Still no SEC win this season. They have been close a couple of times, 3:15 on the SEC network. You kind of brought it up a little bit earlier with Stanford Steve. I feel like 46.5 is a little too low in this game. Texas a 6.5-point favorite on the road. And you can kind of question some of the things State was doing offensively later in the game, but did have success moving the ball at times on that Florida defense a week ago. Run game has been there most of the season for Mississippi State. Texas great on the edges, pretty good inside. I think that it's a defense that has been a little hyper-aggressive at times, and I don't know how much that's going to benefit Mississippi State in this game. They'll get their shots in, but that downhill rushing attack, if Texas is going to move and be sort of more lateral than they have been north and south on defense, could be a benefit. What are you watching from Mississippi State as far as whether or not you think they'll be able to move the football against this Texas group?
I'm not very confident in them being able to run the ball. Are you?
I think they can find some because of how they do it.
I'm not saying they
Let's
won't
spread
try.
their defense out. Yeah, I think they'll get some.
See, I don't know. I think if you try to attack the edges a bit, you might have a shot, but I have a hard time envisioning that. Like, my whole thing with Texas, if I'm Texas, I'm sitting there saying, all right, lock them and block them, man. Let's anchor down, and let's not let them gash us on the edges. Because I do think there are some areas that you can hit in the alleys on the edges against Texas. I think they have some really disruptive players. I also think Anthony Hill's an eraser, so he can get over the top. But I think the biggest key for them is stopping the run in this game. Like, let them stop the run, get them behind the chains, and rush the passer. I think it's a pretty simple recipe. It doesn't mean it's going to be effective, but I think it's a pretty simple recipe looking at it right now.
This is Mississippi State head coach Jeff Lebby discussing what he has seen in that Texas Longhorns defense.
Overs are what stands out. The way these guys have pressured the quarterback, again, 10 sacks in the last 2 weeks. Being able to create these huge momentum plays and big plays, getting their hands on the football and creating turnovers by getting interceptions. It jumps out at you. I think there's guys that are in positions to make a ton of plays. They diagnose in a hurry. They've got great talent and a great roster and are put in positions again to be able to go make plays. They do a great job on that side of the ball of playing to exactly who they are, and it shows up.
So not only has Mississippi State, I think, exceeded expectations for most fans, for Steve Sarkisian as well. He discussed earlier this week just kind of that evolution of the Mississippi State program under Jeff Lebby.
I think offensively, they got vertical threats in Brennan Thompson and Evans. Shapen really fits within the scheme of what they're doing, and then they're running the football well. They're kind of now in year 2 of doing that. I think on the defensive side of the ball, they've continued to evolve the style of defense that they're playing. They're deep up front. They play a multitude of guys. Very aggressive style of defense. And so I just think, year two, you can start to see it take shape of the style of team that Coach Levy, has wanted.
That's Steve Sarkisian just on the Mississippi State program under Levy, also discussing how he can help his defensive depth the rest of this season.
Well, I think it's helpful because of the style of offense. Coach Levy's going to go fast. They're going to play with great tempo. And with that, they're going to, they have to play more snaps on defense as well. And so I think that definitely helps them with the depth on the defensive side of the ball.
All right, so ultimately, Greg, which direction do you think this game goes?
I think Mississippi State's going to hang. I think Texas will win, but I think it's going to be close.
I don't know. There's a part of me that wants to pick State here. Part of me that thinks they actually get it done. Being on the road, I think, is going to be complicated. I look at that defense from Mississippi State, not only the reps like Sark has mentioned that they've been on the field, some of the different things that Sark's going to give you with misdirection, some of the different concepts where the emphasis goes on maybe the back out of the backfield, and you got that tight end on a wheel. You got receivers that are coming back across the line of scrimmage with different plays. I think a lot of this is going to be on Arch Manning because I do think Mississippi State will get to him. I think Mississippi State can find pressure. Does he stay calm in the pocket? Is he able to deliver accurate footballs? Does he break them down with his legs? All those things I think are going to be critical for what Texas does. I'd love to give you an offensive lineman or the entire offensive line, just how important they're going to be. It probably comes down to Quintravious Wisner and catching the football out of the backfield. You go back last week, not as many of those explosives as we had against Oklahoma where he made guys miss and was able to get down the field. So I'm leading Mississippi State, man. They're going to get one of these games, and I don't think it's going to be later in the year because I think they're going to be gassed again. But I think this is the one that they get. You look at what Kentucky was able to do, getting in the backfield, getting to Arch Manning last week. I think they can replicate some of that. So I'll take Mississippi State straight up at home to get the upset over Texas.
I got no problem with that. I think on SportsCenter today, that was the game I gave as the upset of the week. That's the underdog that I think would be worth backing for sure. So I struggle with this one. I'm not going to lie because there's a lot that I like about Mississippi State. I just wonder if Texas has maybe figured things out and maybe if they're in a position now to finally play up to their potential on the road. Like, they've had to be on the road now for a lot. I mean, they have not been home in this month. So we'll see how they handle it, but this is going to be a really tall order. So I think Mississippi State's the play. Like, if you're trying to bet it, I don't know how you can lay the points with Texas on the road based on anything you've seen. But Mississippi State winning outright, I just don't love Mississippi State's offense. That's my only problem. I don't love their offense, and I think Texas's defense is still pretty dang good.
Is Arch Manning still growing? Have you seen strides in his game this year?
Not against Kentucky. That was a tough day. Like, Arch needs things around him to be pretty good, and they haven't been. Like, I think their wideouts are fine. I think I wouldn't say they're great. I think they're fine. I think their O-line, especially on the interior, is very disappointing. Outrageously disappointing, frankly, from what we thought it was going to be going into the season. I just think everything around him has just been a lot worse than we anticipated. And while as a quarterback you get all the credit and all the blame, right? And the offense has struggled from time to time. But I think if you look at this year's receiver core, what we expected versus what they are nowhere near what we thought they were going to be. Wingo, Livingston, DeAndre Moore, they're solid. But we're talking about Texas here. You know what I mean? It's like talking about Georgia's defensive front. Like, they're good, but they're not Georgia. Like, this group for Texas at wide receiver, they're good, they're not Texas. The offensive line's been very disappointing, and I do think that Trey Wisner's a difference maker, but there's only so much a running back can do. So, I don't know, like, how would you assess where things are? I think Arch is getting way too much blame, when in reality, the people around him are just not what they need to be for him to play at a Heisman caliber level.
No, I think it starts up front. The offensive line just flat has not been good. Even against Oklahoma, I think they benefited greatly for whatever reason, Oklahoma deciding to just play static in that game, not move in that game. Gave them some big advantages, allowed them to do some things that I'm not sure they would have been able to do otherwise. We've talked about the skill guys, probably outside of Wisner, just not making plays when they get the ball in their hand. And it's one of the things that we're used to with a Texas offense is those guys consistently making plays. They haven't done it. And that's got to change. And this is a physical state team. This is a team that plays aggressive, that attacks the football, swarms with the football. And being on the road against that kind of a group, it feels like Texas could be affected by that. That's the feeling that I get of how they've played, how they've operated this year. Ultimately, will it? We don't really know. But that's going to be on the individuals once they get out there and get punched in the face and how they want to react to it. So I don't think that they've lived up to the expectation, no. I do agree with you that Arch gets way too much of the blame. But then there's a times that come where you feel like he's kind of getting back into a rhythm, getting into a groove, and he dirtballs one or throws one into the second row, and you're just kind of like, ouch, that can't happen right there. And with him, it feels like on a semi-consistent basis that it does. So plenty of blame to go around for the Texas offense. I'm not going to point a finger at one guy, but I feel like this is a sneaky one. I feel like State's got a chance to get it. I think they're going to get it, and I probably should have picked that for my upset pick of the week yesterday, but either way, doesn't really matter. All right, when we come back, we will.
Hey, you're good.
I'll just keep giving them, keep going to more of them. We'll have more upsets for you next right here on Jocks. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning, 9:49 a.m. here in Lexington, 8:49 there in Birmingham, Alabama. on Jocks. Listen online, jocksfm.com. App is in your App Store, iPhone, Android. You can download that for free. Going to continue talking college football games coming up this weekend. A couple outside the SEC could be interesting. We talked about that Indiana line, 25.5 being a little bit too much against UCLA. This is the big noon kickoff on Fox tomorrow morning. UCLA up to 3-4 after a dismal start. Can they challenge Indiana in this game, Greg? Can they make this interesting for 4 quarters in your mind?
I don't see it that much. I think that this could be the game where UCLA kind of comes back to earth just a little bit. It's honestly a real testament to how much they've improved. They've really done a great job. They should feel really good about everything they've done since Tim Skipper took over as the interim. They're playing freer. They're playing faster. But at the same time, this is a bit of a different animal. And I think some of the disruption that can be caused by this front is going to be extremely difficult for UCLA to handle. I think they'll get to Nico, and I think they could make things difficult. I wouldn't lay the points, but I also don't feel super strongly about this game being competitive either.
How competitive can Syracuse make things for Georgia Tech? Georgia Tech 7-0, one of the 6 undefeated teams in college football remaining. Syracuse comes in 3-4. We had different expectations for this team, kind of what they were going to be. But I think they understand what they're getting into. Tech going to be at home, and I look at this game as one that for Georgia Tech probably going to be able to create the space that they want to with motions, formations, offensively. You add quarterback run to that, and I think the success on the ground is going to be there, and you just sort of build on that, add on that. I think Georgia Tech's offensive line can have some success here. I thought Syracuse defensive front would be a little bit better than it's been this year. There are a lot of people that feel really nervous about Tech in this spot. I kind of don't see it. I know Fran's going to have the guys play hard. I know they're going to be physical, but I look at this game and feel like Georgia Tech should take it, barring a poor start, which we have seen multiple times this year, and turnovers, which we have seen at times this year. They've been able to overcome those, though. I think Georgia Tech handles business at home. 16.5 does feel like too much, though.
It's a lot of points. My only thing, and this to me, I just don't think you can pull an upset of this magnitude if your quarterback is a liability. And there is nothing I've seen from Ricky Collins that leads me to believe that he is a guy that's capable of leading an upset like this. I think if Georgia Tech loses this game, it's because they screwed it up. We'll look back at the end of the game and we'll say Georgia Tech fumbled twice. Georgia Tech threw 2 picks. Georgia Tech couldn't score touchdowns in the red zone. They'd settle for field goals. They had 2 4th-down stops in plus territory. Like, that to me is how I think Syracuse wins the game or makes it competitive. I am just, at this point, that I just have not seen enough from Syracuse's offense to make me think they can generate a whole lot against the defense that I think is a little bit underrated. Like, we talk so much about everything with Syracuse we talk so much about everything with Georgia Tech and their offense and how Buster Faulkner does it and the challenges that he puts together. And I love Buster Faulkner. But I don't think the defense is getting enough credit. I think it's a pretty good group, and they contained a Duke offense last week that was pretty dang good, by the way. So I like them. I don't know how you see it.
No, I'm with you. I feel pretty good about it. One that I think is interesting as far as the number also is Virginia tomorrow morning at 11 on the ACC network. Now, on the road, I get it. I understand that part. It's going to be 57, sunny, so it's not like the weather's going to be an issue here. But they're a 10.5-point favorite against North Carolina, who has been absolutely abysmal. I love Virginia in this spot. I love them minus 10.5 in this spot. And what am I missing on this game, Greg, that I feel so good about Virginia being able to cover 10.5 in Chapel Hill?
There was a little progress made by North Carolina last week on the road at Cal. That's what you're missing. Defensively, they looked better. Now, Cal has a true freshman quarterback. But I do think on defense, albeit maybe a little bit overshadowed by the ineptitudes of what we saw earlier in the season, I do think North Carolina's getting a touch better on that side of the ball. And I do think that Virginia is going to be a team all season long that is the tiniest bit boom or bust. There's going to be a game, and I don't know when it's coming. It might have come last week against Washington State. There's going to be a game or two in which the offense just completely lays an egg. And they turn it over, and they play poorly. It's coming. I don't know when. And like I said, it could have been last week that required a game-winning safety, by the way, to win the game. So maybe this is the week, but I wouldn't lay double digits on the road with the Virginia team. I still don't trust them. I just don't trust them. I don't like North Carolina, but I don't trust Virginia.
I was like, if not trusting Virginia is the description, what would the description of North Carolina be then?
I can't. Don't even get me started with them.
But I get it.
That's what
I understand.
That's what
it just
the
feels like
description is.
I know 10.5's a lot of points, but I don't know. I'll take the team that I'm confident can score against the team that I'm pretty confident can't defend, no matter where the game is. So yeah, I like Virginia, even though that is a lot of points there. We got a lot more games to get to. Does Memphis bounce back against South Florida? Washington may be in trouble with Illinois visiting tomorrow. Texas Tech stay hot. There's another team that Greg has been high on most of this season that has a tough matchup tomorrow in the Big 12. We'll discuss that game. Get back into the SEC. Finish our breakdowns of Auburn, Arkansas. Also Alabama, South Carolina. And everything else around college football. All that and more coming up next right here on Jocks.